All right, let's speak now to Sentleeng Lehihi, SABC News reporter who's joining us live now. Sentleeng, of course, in the absence of accountability, the wounds in Marikana will likely take long to heal, but it's also interesting to see some of the families that would have attended the commemorations in different days coming together on one day in order to remember their loved ones.
Absolutely. The horrendous deaths that were caused here on this land remain quite vivid in the minds of those who are here with them as well as their families, recalling that these people came out here to work, to look for better living conditions and better wages, only for them to lose their lives at the hands of police. We have not seen any accountability. What is significant, as you said, is that all of these families and their multitudes dedicate a day in the year to ensure that they come together, hold hands, and remember their lost loved ones. We saw them being led by President of AMCU, Joseph Mathunjwa, at the beginning of the program, laying wreaths at one of the sites where those 34, some of those 34 downed. They explained to us there thoroughly that that site is significant because it reflects those who died when they were trying to flee from the bullets. Many of them were shot while laying down with multiple shots, body-wise, to their head, some in the back and to the back of their heads. Joseph Mathunjwa described that as it was just a genocide or a massacre that is undeniable. He said he would liken it to the bloodbath that we're seeing in Israel with Palestine. He said that it is important that we do not only take count of those who died, but we call those who are responsible to account and ensure that they do come here and pay homage and respect and apologize. We also heard from the legal representative of the mine workers and the affected families saying that President Ramaphosa has never been rejected or limited from coming here. And since he made the promise of coming here to speak to the people, he must adhere to that very promise. And in going with that note with the presidency and the ruling or the governing situation in the country, President of AMCU, Joseph Mathunjwa, said that, the current GNU that we see in action was actually done to, shortchange voters. They did not vote for parties to collaborate. They voted for a party to rule and govern. And you wonder that with this collaboration of parties, which manifesto or which promises are now preponderant? He explained quite thoroughly there that they themselves as a union have formed a Labour Party, and they intend to take South African politics by storm with a clear and specific focus on labour matters. They say that amendments in labour acts, amendments that are necessary in the mining sector have lagged quite significantly because the political powers are not putting the necessary pressure needed. He says that it is time that mines are held accountable, not only for what happened here in Marikana, but for the continuing mining casualties and fatalities that we're seeing. You remember that in this area where mining is a preponderant industry, we have seen quite a number of fatalities. And he says it is wrong that mines are not put to task to pay and compensate or likely even be sued for putting workers' lives at risk. Indeed, today's program went on, even though it started a bit late. We saw quite a number of AMCU supporters and mine workers come here, and those we have spoken to said quite descriptively that this day remains quite very etched in their minds, in a sense that they recall clearly what happened, how their fellow workers died, and how everyone went mum and there was no accountability. They concede that fine, yes indeed, those who committed the murders, or there has been some sort of prosecution for the murders that occurred on the days preceding the massacre, but the failure to hold government, police, and those who were in power at the time for the eventualities that occurred on this land on the 16th of August 2012 is still outstanding. And that is a demand that they don't want to back up from. They're saying more so, this day must be declared a public holiday. There must be a monument placed here to recall and commemorate those who lost their lives.
And you know, Sentleeng, as you speak about accountability, not very far from where you are is that copy. And behind those particular rocks were some of the men as well who were killed in very mysterious circumstances, especially when you go through what the Farlam Commission's report had to even talk about, and even the evidence, when you think about the fact that some were found with cable ties, some were found facing down, others were seen to be possibly fleeing from police at the time. Let's talk about that, because that's also part of the wounds that are refusing to heal.
Absolutely. That brings to significance the placing of the rats at that particular location. These are sites where we saw mine workers who had injuries or wounds from their back, reflecting people who were fleeing. So there needs to be serious justice for those people who lost their lives fleeing from this bloodbath. They're saying there to us that
all right, it seems that that line there to Sentleeng, in fact, has just let us down. But we did get a gist of, you know, the fact that 12 years on, there is still some unhappiness about what took place in Marikana and still calls for accountability. Of course, we've seen a movement in some, you know, parts when it comes to taking accountability for what happened in the preceding days of what has been described as the Marikana Massacre. But of course, a lot of, you know, views and even anger about what took place on the 16th of August 2012. So certainly we'll continue to bring you developments on this particular story. That's my colleague there, Sentleeng Lehihi, SABC News reporter.